Welcome to the Victoria Anarchist Book Fair's week of podcasts and performances featuring local, national, and international activists and authors.
The Book Fair Collective and From Embers have teamed up this year to release presentations over our podcast platform that can't be held in person due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Recordings of these voices of resistance were conducted on unceded Indigenous territories across so-called British Columbia and beyond.
For more information about the book fair and a full schedule of online events this week, you can check out victoriaanarchistbookfair.ca.
Listeners in the Victoria region are encouraged to visit Camas Books at camas.ca for anarchist publications and more.
Thanks for listening.
The Victoria Anarchist Book Fair Collective would like to acknowledge the interview you are about to hear with Queen Sacheen from Ancestral Pride. It is simultaneously occurring on unceded Western territory in so-called Victoria, BC, and on unceded Musqueam land in what is now called Vancouver, BC. Thank you all for attending this special podcast featuring an interview with Sacheen, co-founder of Ancestral Pride, with whom she has published numerous themes on Indigenous sovereignty and resistance. My name is Nathan Moss, and I'm privileged to have this opportunity to ask Sacheen about her life and views on Indigenous sovereignty. Sacheen has spent a great deal of time advising Settler-anarchists on how to be in solidarity with Indigenous resistance movements. She is a warrior who has taken part in many actions, including Standing Rock. Finally, Sacheen is a proud mother, matriarch, doula, and medicine woman. Sacheen, thank you for joining me today. I know most of today's conversation is going to be really informative and informative. The last few years, we've seen a real push towards asserting inherent Indigenous rights and sovereignty in regards to legalist resource extraction projects on different territories. What's the number one? What are some of the things that encourage you about the current state of Indigenous revitalization?
So when I'm thinking about the current state of Indigenous revitalization, is that we have finally come to a place as Indigenous people where we are reclaiming who we are in a somewhat safe manner. It is still very hard for Indigenous people due to racism and intergenerational trauma to try and use and utilize our culture and to learn our spiritual ways and our teachings. But we have finally come to a generation with these new young children who are coming up to be able to teach them in a healthy and responsible manner. So I think that focusing on the children and these next generations that are coming up and being born is what is going to give us the most benefit. We have to do away with people who are gatekeepers to knowledge, especially our own elders. We know they suffered through trauma of their own with residential schools, the sexual abuse, and everything that comes with genocide and colonization and forced assimilation. But it's time to let these barriers go in order to bring these children up and into our culture and our ways, and to be able to utilize them and to have those teachings and that knowledge readily available so that they can then teach their children. This is the only way that revitalization and keeping our traditions and our teachings going is by doing away with those notions that are outdated that we have to hide our knowledge, because we don't anymore. The only thing we have to be careful about is making sure that as we are doing this very important work and we are creating these cultures and communities of teachings and resistance, that we are not allowing colonizers or people who don't have the best interest in the spirit of the movement at heart, because there are a lot of people who want to capitalize on the revitalization of Indigenous people, and that can be terrifying. So we have to come up with some kind of a way where we can, vet these people that are coming in or that we're teaching, to make sure that we're not gatekeeping, but we're not just giving away our knowledge to people who are going to capitalize on it.
Sacheen, what are some of the barriers and emotions that you're referring to that you view as obstacles in bringing forth the new generation to learn this knowledge and carry it forward?
There's a lot of different ways that we could look at it, and what I see in some of my major concerns is that due to social media and the state of the world right now, and even COVID, it was created for this new whole world that we're living in, basically a new world order. If I can sound a little tinfoil hatty about it, but I mean, that's one of our biggest barriers to moving forward, is the fact that a lot of our younger generation don't really, seem to care anymore, and so we have to spark that fire again, and make sure that that even though we want to pass on the teachings, that they want to receive them in a good way.
Okay, and with that being said, do you want to elaborate more about the concern that you have with the direction the revitalization movement is heading? You mentioned some of the things, but what are some of the things maybe within your own community? I know you mentioned the fact that the younger generation doesn't seem to have that fire, but is there anything else that concerns you?
Our young people right now are dealing with a lot of different things, and it might not seem like they have room or space for what they would see as old-fashioned or things like that. But what I think has really been working well for the younger generations is feeling empowered to learn about their culture and to learn about our spirituality and our teachings and our ways through blockades and that pride that it is that this is our land, these are our waters. And, I had my daughter Destiny here with me a couple days ago, and she went home on the ferry to Port Alberni and went straight to the DFO protest, because they are trying to prevent our people from fishing on the Somas River. And just knowing and seeing that, and how proud she was to be on the water and to participate in that, and and that other young people were looking up to her. So we have to find these role models, or these young people who feel driven to participate in these things, and find a way to lift them up and support them, all of these young people in this new generation, so that they're in a position where they're doing it for themselves, just like we did with the Native Youth Movement when I was 16 and 17.
So, that being said, as an anarchist in solidarity, I've noticed there is sometimes a divide in the Indigenous community between Bandak families and traditionalists. It is currently an issue in the Western territories, but I know from personal experience that this dynamic is a constant struggle for many nations, dating back to the removal of the Indian nation from reserve. What are your thoughts on this particular divide?
Okay, so this is really the difference in neo-colonialism and colonialism. Is basically we have now what we would say the Bandak families are the ones who are following this more colonial model of governance instead of following the traditional Indigenous governance models that we have been using for thousands of years, in millennia actually, is basically that they are adhering to a different way, and they have been so successfully colonized and assimilated that they have turned into the basically the Indigenous colonizers of our own people by putting us in these positions where we have to choose between, you know, hereditary and Indigenous leadership that has been there for millennia, or between, you know, this really old-fashioned, outdated mode and model of like band, First Nations band, what you were calling Band Act families and people. And, you know, this is basically from the 1950s, and it's never been updated. So even though it's what is considered a new model of, you know, governing ourselves, it's basically like old-fashioned and rooted in assimilation and genocide. It's basically made to eventually assimilate all of our people and take away our status. So we have to find a way, and I really don't think there's any way to balance this, but we have to find a way as people who are really inherently using our Indigenous government systems to rule. And I use the term rule loosely, but, you know, to make sure that our lands and waters and air are safe for our children, the future generations, is to eradicate the First Nations acts and become our own entities. We're basically on a nation-to-nation basis, which is exactly what UNDRIP was about, but we know has never been instituted or implemented. So there's a lot of work going on that's definitely going to take a few more generations. That's where I'm at with that.
Do you want to comment on some of the work that you know of that's been going on?
Well, basically, right now it's a push and a pull, and it's a struggle that's dividing families and dividing nations, and really, you know, it's invasive. And colonialism and, you know, settlers here, whatever they want to call themselves, invaders here, are basically just, you know, in a place where they are the invasive species, and, you know, and they're infecting our own people. And I don't really know where we're going to go with that. I have my own ideas and thoughts on these matters that I'm still just fleshing out for myself, and I think it's a question that's going to be kept going and growing on it for the next few generations before we actually get it right.
Okay, and it might be a tough question, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but do you think the state of the planet today that that Indigenous people are not only here on Turtle Island but around the world, do you think that you guys have a few more generations, meaning the direction that globalization and colonization and capitalism are heading? Do you think that that there are rules in place where we can hang on until the next generation is able to take shape and revolutionize back to traditional governance?
Well, in the words of Che Guevara, I'm definitely a hopeless romantic, and I believe that, you know, we are going to be able to do this, and that we do have generations left. A lot of people have called me an idealist or a pipe dreamer because, you know, they're saying I'm investing myself in a future that doesn't exist because of globalization and what is going to be happening, and that, you know, we're going to be one big melting pot. But, you know, I really believe that here on the West Coast, as the last bastion of basically almost untouched tribes and civilizations, that, you know, we can keep strong and do this. But I can't say for anybody else. I just know the West Coast can and will. That's the future I see for us, is that regardless of globalization, we're also heading into societal collapse. And, you know, it's basically Rome is falling right now around our ears, and we're watching it happen. And that leaves space and room for us to finally, you know, move forward with Indigenous governance and, you know, use the tools that we've been using for millennia to work for us during this global collapse.
Do you think that there is a broad enough realization on the West Coast that the crews are there, that the language, the land, the hunt, the food, the ecosystem? Do you get a sense that in your community today that people know that the crews are there, they just have to pick them up?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's that inside of all of us where it's our instinct to make sure that we're keeping on going with where we're headed. And I've been seeing it happen, and I think it's really, it's like we're planted the seeds, the garden is growing, and we're just going to keep propagating, and we're, resistance and all of it is a part of it. It's going to be great. We just have to weed the garden now and then to make sure that we're always on the, growing the healthiest plants.
Sacheen, I know that you weren't always the person you are now. So
Yeah.
how did you become radicalized and have the disposition and the person you are now?
Okay, so basically I come from a family on my mother's side that was involved in Indigenous resistance as young people. So my mother and her brother and sisters and my extended family on that side were involved in this. So it's always been something that was there. And also on my father's side of the family as well. So I think I was pretty much born radicalized and ready for this work. And, being raised by my father, the way he did, it's steeped in my culture and knowing in my indigeneity and having the self-confidence and the love. And, my mom teaching me how to survive during hard struggles, they're the ones who raised me to be who I am today. And there really wasn't any transformation. This is who I was born to be and what I was meant to do.
You mentioned your dad and your mom and their side of the family. Was there anyone in particular in your family or your community that enhanced that nurturing environment of radicalization and all the things that you carry from being born into that world to now?
Definitely, there was a lot of influence that I had besides my parents. Most of the credit, though, I would give to Wolverine during the Gusason Lake conflict. They came to give a talk, Wolverine and Lightning Splits the Sky, when I was a young teenager at the time. And I think it was 1994. Maybe where they had came 94, 95. I'm not sure on the years, and I'm really bad with this time-space continuum things in Gregorian calendars, but they came after the Gusason Lake conflict, and really it was basically not lit a fire because the fire was already there, but they added fuel to the flames, and, it was a huge inspiration for myself, as well as Edie O'Meara, who we had started Native Youth Movement together.
Okay, and from there, what are your plans for the future?
Well, my plans for the future, besides being fabulous, I'm starting an apothecary because I make medicines. I have relocated home to the West Coast from Winnipeg, where I had lived for a couple of years. And so basically I'm starting from the ground up. I leased the storefront, and it's going to be basically an Indigenous portal to gathering space, workshops, also going to be selling medicines, and be able to really have a home base for myself to start my empire anew, and to really focus and work on during this next year into creating a lot of different things. I got my fingers in a lot of pies right now, and I just need the people to believe in me. And it's called Hopakowitz Apothecary, and we should be open soon. And even while I'm doing this, I'm planning for a future full of resistance and beautiful gatherings, and going through hardships and hard times and struggling with my people. I'm also homeless. I just found out right before this meeting that the apartment I was was supposed to get felt through. So, like, I'm keeping it real on a level that a lot of people don't think. While I'm doing this work for the community and my people and our next generations, I'm also trying to take care of myself. So I plan for taking more time for self-care in the future, whatever that looks like for me, when I can, manage to squish that in.
You mentioned, Sacheen, that a lot of people don't realize your dedication and your hard work and your passion. Is there something that you would like to share with regard to the wider audience about VOO and what you feel you've been doing and what you're pursuing?
Yeah, like, definitely. Basically, I've dedicated my life since the age of 16 to, protecting our lands and our waters, and to also creating a culture of community and resistance, so that we have places for Indigenous people to feel safe, not only with each other, but also safe from, society in general. And what that looks like to me is that, that we're always supporting and loving each other in our endeavors, and that we look at the big picture and don't let the smaller things. And, like, there's people I don't get along with in the movement, but I will always support them and what they're doing to create a better future for the next generations, because we're looking at a bigger picture here. And I think that people really need, to remember our time here is finite as, human beings with bodies that are, decaying, and we're getting older. And where do we really want to leave the next generations with? We want to leave them with the dedication and the determination and the discipline to continue and better the work that we started. And, so I just think that, like, in broader terms of supporting, allies need to step up even more now during COVID, especially when, a lot of us are working really, really hard at just trying to remain stable so that we can continue this work. So if there's anything I could leave anybody with, is just, support us. I'm on Facebook as Sacheen Kinish, Sacheen, capital Kinish. I have a fundraiser for a startup for my store. My sister Chrissy, I just delivered her baby. I'm a midwife. She's looking for a meal train to help her. And, also, just in general, what can allies do during COVID to help Indigenous people who are basically trying to save our lands and waters? There was an arrest made of a Secwepemc warrior woman this morning. How can we support that? So there's all different kinds of things, and all the information is out there. And, all the people have to do is just open their eyes and look, and then support us in these ways.
Do you have anything like a website for your store, or any website besides Facebook that people who are interested and hear this interview and are inspired to say, I want to help with that, and I want to be a part of that in solidarity? Do you have any suggestions about where they can go?
Yes, definitely. They can look me up on Facebook, but I also have a page, and I'll send you the link so you can include it with the proper spelling, but it's Hopakowitz Apothecary. And so basically this is the page for my store. And it's also, I have Ancestral Pride, which is a Facebook page which I use for things that are resistance, but I haven't been using that one as of lately. But definitely, even just looking me up on Facebook, I'm always available and sharing ideas. And if people want to support, they can use my PayPal as well. There's myriad ways of supporting me. So basically, that's about it.
What is your address for PayPal?
It's MAMAZONS creations@gmail.com. mamazonscreations@gmail.com. And if anybody wants to support right now, that would be great. As I said, I'm now scrambling around looking for a new home to live in, when I thought I had that. Thought I had that secured.
Okay. I just want to ask you one more question, because I think it really it really could be a real good piece of knowledge about you. You said from the age, you said you began your realization at the age of 16. Was there a moment at that scene before 16 when you kind of got a clue into what your life path would be?
Yes, like I said, I've pretty much known from birth exactly what I was going to do. Some of my earliest memories are of my father talking to me about who I am and where I come from. And one of the lessons that always stuck for me, and one of the first things that I really remember him saying as a very, very small child, is that you are not nobody. You were born to be who you are, Sacheen, and you are a queen. And I'm very, very lucky that I was raised with that knowledge, and I knew at a very early age what my responsibility was to my people, the land, the water, and our way of life.
Who gave you the knowledge of medicine, or was that a matter of listening through relationships and over time?
I was literally born inherently with this knowledge, and I've always known how to use medicines and plants. One of my most precious uncles, who is Kwamachin and has since passed, Larry, he taught me a lot. My father has taught me a lot, and a lot of it is just knowledge from the ancestors, or however you would say. A lot of people say through witchery, or that, these things, but it's just, it's inside of me, and it's who I was meant to be. And I've always known how to use medicines and plants and what they were for and how to prepare them. And the guidance that I received from my uncle Larry and my father, and has really helped as well. But I've always known this is my bioregion, this is who I am and where I am from. So I've never, I'm very, very fortunate and privileged that I'm surrounded by a lot of people that we can share and exchange knowledge with, in terms of these things, and that we've all kind of taught each other. And a lot of us were trained by, our elders, just the way we're supposed to be in our communities, and the way we've always been trained and taught to do these things since time immemorial, basically. And, I've got a really good network of people, and this ties in with, making sure that also we're not just giving away our knowledge to people who don't, who want to capitalize on it. So, we have to be careful.
And that, without naming specific people, just in general.
Oh, no, I wouldn't want to share that. I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that.
No, but I mean, like, in general, in terms of what are some of the parties that are, are the businesses, are the corporate entities that are afraid that...
A lot of them are indigenous, indigenous healers like myself, and because of all of these different things that we're involved in, not just the medicine making and the healing, but also with what you would say, like, we're protecting, we're not protesting. So we're affiliated with a lot of different groups, like and indigenous people and non-indigenous people who are doing things, which is why I think a lot of indigenous people who are radicalized really have a lot of love and respect for those communities who step in and help us, like anarchists and allies, and people who are willing to put themselves out there.
Okay, all right. And before we conclude this interview, is there anything that comes to your mind or heart that you would like to add?
Just that during this time right now, what we're going through with the world pandemic and COVID is to be more aware of your people, and to really work hard at not isolating so much that we're causing ourselves anguish and pain mentally and physically and emotionally, because we do need that human contact. And with the state of the government and the world right now, things are going to get worse really quick, and we have to be careful. So just always keep your eyes peeled and open, and make sure that people you love aren't coming to harm, or aren't afraid to ask for help and resistance, that we, even despite all of this, we still have to keep moving forward.
All right, Sacheen, thank you very much for taking the time to share your thoughts and reflections and your journey. And we will all do our best to stand in solidarity and do whatever we can to help.
Flecko.